What's going on, guys, and welcome to today's video. And today I thought we would do a little bit more here on the old, or the new to me, 2004 Jeep Grand Cherokee, my current WJ number 15 that I have owned, rescued, saved from the dead, saved from the scrapyard, whatever you want to call it. And I've got to confess something, guys. In the first video, I was very confident in my diagnosis, in my shotgun diagnosis, if you will, that I had a bad ignition switch actuator. Again, very boastful. Yes, we've seen this before. It happens all the time. I'm going to get the part and I'll go ahead and show you guys the install. That's not the problem. Now, I did not buy the part yet, but I drove this long enough that I finally set a check engine light and then actually scanned the code and actually figured out why this thing does not start with the key. And I can accept, or can say, I misdiagnosed this Jeep. Now, did we really do any diagnosis the first time? No, not really. I was just flying from the seat and assuming that's what our issue was. But we will look at the scan tool and figure out finally why this dumb thing doesn't start with a key. And there was actually somebody that commented on the last video with the actual correct repair and what he found. So again, normally with these rebuilders, I kind of show a single video of, yay, we drug it out of somebody's backyard. Look, it's all nasty and dirty. Let's fix the issue that makes it not run. Let's put a lift, wheels, and tires on it. And then you guys never really see the Jeep again. It gets put on Facebook Marketplace when it's done and it goes to a new home. But I thought I would show you guys more of the small little mindless things that I do on every single one of these darn things before they find a new home. Now, this Jeep has already made its way into the shop, already got its engine oil changed, its front axle fluid, rear axle fluid, transfer case fluid changed, went ahead and changed all of our left and right tie rod ends, our left and right drag link ends, because they were absolutely smoked on this thing, causing a massive amount of death wobble, and went ahead and threw a JL Wrangler takeoff steering dampener on this thing. I do have a video on the channel of that. Now, this also got sway bar end links off of a Wrangler JL in the front and a Gladiator in the rear. Again, I've got old videos of that stuff too. But this thing is also going to get some Wrangler JL and JK shocks put on this thing. I probably won't do that in this video, but I'll probably film how I'm recycling JK and JL, or Gladiator for that matter, shocks to fit a WJ for us budget-minded WJ owners. And if you're looking on Facebook Marketplace, you can find shocks for absolutely nothing. So let's jump to the back of the Jeep. I'll show you the mountain of small parts that we've got for this thing that should kind of, for the most part, carry this thing over the finish line. But first, let's look at the scan tool and I'll show you what the Jeep actually needs to start with the key. Okay, guys, so like I said, I drove this thing for a few days and finally got a check engine light. And I have not scanned this thing again for another few days until making this video, to only find out I've got even more codes and we need to get a few more parts in this thing, which explain a few more other little weird issues. But the starting issue, let's look into that. Like I said, we do have now a camshaft sensor code, and this thing does kind of hiccup from time to time. We put a new crankshaft sensor in this because the rodent had chewed through it, so we might need a camshaft sensor put on this thing to make it happy. Now, we also have a thermostat inactive code. Basically, I think somebody's got the thermostat pulled out of this thing. Either somebody has the thermostat pulled out of this, or this is the coldest running 4-liter I have ever seen in my life. It never even gets up to 210. It always stays under. So I went ahead and got a thermostat again to hopefully take care of the lack of heat. Again, it doesn't really matter here in the summer, but in the winter, you're gonna want a thermostat to be able to regulate some engine temp and some heat there in the cabin. Now guys, the big thing right here, park neutral switch performance rationality P1899. That's why our Jeep will not start with the key. With the factory scan tool that I've got at work, I can read our transmission control module, our gear shifter positions. This thing thinks it is in drive in every single position, park, neutral, reverse, drive, whatever. The range sensor on the transmission, again, thinks it is in drive, which will not allow a starter to crank. So we've went ahead and got a range sensor ordered for this. We will hopefully get it thrown in this video, and hopefully we'll be able to hook up the factory wiring to the starter and have a working key again for the first time in how many years on this Jeep. So that is why we are not starting, and why this thing got a goofy starter button bypass thing hooked up years and years ago. Now, the last code this thing has in it is loss of cam or crank signals, P1391. Again, that is related to our code for our cam shaft sensor. So I unfortunately did not notice that until I literally scanned it making this video, and it's again popped up more codes than it had a few days ago. So this thing will need a camshaft sensor, which again, we will not be doing in this video because I have not ordered one, but that should hopefully, again, take care of some of the little bit of bucking or hesitation that this will intermittently do when it's warm. So again, let's finally jump back to all the parts and let's see what we've got to put on, hopefully in this very hodgepodge of a video that's just going to be cut, chopped pieces of multiple different days of putting this thing back together. Okay guys, so I don't really know how much of all of this I'm going to film because some of this is pretty boring. Like, do you guys really want to see me installing wiper blades on a Grand Cherokee? No, probably not. But again, another thing, we're doing a transmission service. So we've got our brand new transmission filter. That's going to be removing the pan, replacing a filter and filling it up. Probably doesn't need to be filmed. I don't know. Another boring thing is front brakes. The front brake pads are really thin on this thing. I've got brake pads here. We're gonna do brakes. That's again, not terribly cool or exciting. Now, one thing very cool and exciting, or at least for me, who is a nerd for factory OEM things, is this is an RB1 radio. This is the factory navigation screen radio that was an option back in the day on Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge. Now, why am I installing this in a kind of higher mileage, maybe not so worthy Jeep Grand Cherokee? Unfortunately, this radio display of the OEM radio is dead. Don't think I've ever seen a OEM Jeep Chrysler Dodge radio with the display dead. Audio works, the backlight works, everything works, but I don't have a display. So you can't see time, you can't see the station you're on. So unfortunately, that radio's gotta go. I can't sell this thing with a radio screen not working. It just doesn't look very nice. So I went over to my buddy who is a RB1 hoarder. Now, hoarder, I mean, anytime he goes to the salvage yard and sees an RB1 in a Jeep Chrysler Dodge, he absolutely takes it. Now, he does also enjoy the OEM Plus mod, so I was able to run over to his collection and grab a RB1 radio and the factory navigation antenna. So this thing will be RB1 swapped, and we will hopefully have a working screen. Now, another big thing here is spark plugs. I have a very strong suspicion this thing has the very wrong plugs in it. It just doesn't idle smoothly, it doesn't run well, so we're gonna go ahead and throw some basic copper spark plugs. That is what a 4-liter is supposed to have in it. Not iridium, not triple super sparkers. Basic copper spark plugs of the correct length for a 4-liter will make them very happy. Now, another piece to the puzzle, the big piece to the puzzle that is our transmission range sensor. Thank goodness this is a early enough 42 RLE that the transmission range sensor is replaceable on the side of the case. Most modern transmissions, that is in or on the valve body. That is a massive pain in the butt. Remove the pan, remove the filter, remove the valve body to gain access to the transmission range sensor. This old dog is a screw-in sensor on the side of the case. It's going to be absolutely easy to replace and hopefully finally fix this thing's starting issue. Now up next is a thermostat, a factory 195-degree Motorad thermostat that is actually the supplier of the 4-liter thermostats. If you were to go to your local Mopar dealer and order a factory thermostat, it is stamped Motorad on the side, so you can save yourself a little money by buying a Motorad aftermarket there for your 4-liter if you need to replace it. So that will hopefully fix our thermostat code and the fact this thing seems to run very, very cool. Now, a next part here is our blower motor resistor. One thing I, of course, immediately found out is our blower motor does not work on low speed 2, speed 3, but of course works on high because that is ran through the blower motor relay versus speeds 1, 2, 3, which are ran through a blower motor resistor. So this thing is going to get our blower speeds working again and make this thing a little bit more livable to daily drive. Another thing here is a valve cover gasket. We talked about this in the original video. This thing was very, very smoky from a very leaky valve cover gasket. Pretty common on an old 4-liter, but again, we've got a fresh gasket here we're gonna get tossed on and we'll get to see how sludgy or not this old motor is. Hopefully it's clean. Last but not least, we will probably not be doing it in this video because I'm still waiting on a few parts and pieces, but the factory muffler is, she's not doing well. The seam is pretty split. It's kind of crusty. It's kind of tired. So I thought we would go with the very knockoff Flowmaster on this thing. This is a $35 Amazon, again, fake Flowmaster 40/50 series muffler. But the big deal is it's not rusted and split out down the seam and isn't going to be leaking exhaust. So I'll probably maybe do a separate video. Again, I've done a video on my WJ third resonator / catalytic converter deletes that I do, and then we will throw this muffler on at the back and probably maybe have a pretty cool sounding 4-liter here while I daily drive it. So those are all the current parts that I've got piled up in weight to go on this thing. Again, like I said, I will probably just be chopping in parts and pieces, random days of throwing parts on this thing. So it's probably gonna be pretty choppy. But again, you guys can see what all goes into a WJ rescue mission. All right, guys, so we are pulling our transmission range sensor, park neutral switch, whatever you want to call this thing up here. And as you guys can tell, it's a little bit greasy, a little bit dirty. That's why I'm trying to brake clean this thing off before we actually break this thing loose. And I guess I didn't know, there's a lot of fluid behind this thing. So be ready if you're doing this yourself. When you pull that thing, it's going to dump fluid real quickly. So I luckily do have a drainer below it, but when this thing comes out, a lot of fluid came out. So quickly swap your new sensor, get that thing screwed back in. Now I have not done a ton of these, but it's a little 3-wire connector. Get that new connector plugged back in. Obviously check or correct your fluid level, and here we've got our scan tool hooked back up. This is the old vintage factory Chrysler Mopar scan tool, and we're going to cycle through. Basically what I'm showing you here is we now show the vehicle is in park. That was the issue here. That little sensor went bad and it thought it was in drive 100% of the time. And obviously the vehicle will not allow you to crank the vehicle if it is in drive. It will only allow you to crank or start the vehicle in park or neutral. So, you know, that was broken how many years ago on this poor Jeep, and the people had wired around the thing on a, you know, switch to bypass the whole starter circuit and just have a push button, which is pretty wild. But I mean, you got to do what you got to do when you can't properly diagnose or fix something. But you know, kind of a
kind of a funny thing for a simple, relatively inexpensive part. That is actually really easy to replace on this transmission. Like I said previously, a lot of transmissions, that sensor is internal in the transmission. You're removing a valve body, you're doing a whole bunch of work. So as I'm pointing at, our park neutral switch position is now showing P/N for park/neutral, which is the whole darn issue, and now allowing that Jeep to start up with the key for, who knows, the first time in 5 years. I don't know actually how long the thing's broken, but the benefit or the cool thing now about the fix is I get to unhook this big red goofy wire that they've got very ambitiously ran through the engine bay. We're hooking up our factory starter wire back onto the starter solenoid down here, our little factory green wire, getting that clip back on. Thank goodness it's a 4-liter and we can actually just reach through the engine bay and get to it. If this was a 4.7, it would be a lot less fun of a job. But again, we're now able to walk over to this thing, hit the key, and actually have it start up under its own free will for once, or my free will, I guess. Key in and hitting it, and wow, look at that. The thing starts for once.
All right, guys, so one of the issues here is this thing is never idled very smoothly. And 4-liters normally idle pretty smooth. Now, of course, on all of my WJs that I rescue, I like to get fresh spark plugs in them. And Mopar engines are pretty darn particular on spark plugs. The factory spark plug for a 4-liter is a Champion, copper, just your basic spark plug here. Nothing fancy, nothing crazy, no iridium triple, sparker or whatever. And now that I'm saying this, I honestly can't remember if it's Champion or NGKRs. I think 4-liters are Champion coppers, and I'm now, biting my tongue here. But regardless, it is a basic copper spark plug. And 4-liters do take a very goofy shaped spark plug. It is a standard length thread, but the electrode hangs down really far compared to normal. So if you've got a normal set of spark plugs, yes, the engine's going to run, but it's not going to be correct. I've had engines come in that have ran very poorly and fix them by just putting the correct spark plugs. Not that the old plugs were worn, they were just very wrong. So I'm kind of hopeful that these spark plugs that are in it are extremely wrong, and pulling them out, putting correct basic copper spark plugs that are the correct length in this thing is going to take care of some of my runability, some of my rough idle, and it should improve power if it's actually making correct sparks. So I'm going to get this coil rail ripped off here, and we'll hopefully pull out a weird goofy spark plug. Now, on first look, they do not look old because the porcelain looks nice and new. They aren't rusty, but they could be, or hopefully are going to be very wrong. And what do we have? Hey, exactly what I thought. This is awesome. All right, literally, again, this is YouTube. I could have already looked at them, but I hope you guys trust me enough to know that I have not pulled this coil rail yet, and I just went ahead and got new plugs. But just literally as I explained, we have 100% the wrong spark plug in this thing. We've got, first off, some iridium, or Lord knows here. We've got a Denso PK20TT. So whatever that is, I would assume that's a iridium plug, but the big deal is it is way too short of a spark plug. If you guys, let me get here a better view. All right, here are our two spark plugs. Can you guys tell or see that the tip is what, 1/8 of an inch, 1/4 inch longer on the correct spark plug than this goofy wrong aftermarket plug? So that just means
our spark is pulled out of the combustion chamber that much further with this wrong spark plug versus the correct length copper basic spark plug here. So man, I am so excited that that's what we found in this thing was 100% the wrong spark plug, and this should actually do some good here on this 4-liter. Yeah, there is a really good shot of how much shorter those spark plugs are. It is, yeah, goodness gracious. Imagine pulling the spark out of the cylinder that, you know, 1/4 inch, 1/8 of an inch, whatever you want to say. That is a big deal when we are needing to make a nice hot fire in our cylinder and make power, make fuel efficiency, make all the above. We can't do that if we're pulling the spark that far out of the combustion chamber. So guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of these spark plugs ripped out of this thing. We'll get the new spark plugs put in this thing, and then we'll get moved on to our next thing here on the WJ.
All right, guys, we're going to throw our blower motor resistor in. Now, if your Jeep has a lack of blower speeds on speeds 1, 2, or 3, or all 3, like in this case, our blower motor resistor is bad. Now, oftentimes a bad blower motor or a blower fan, blower motor will cause our resistor to die. This one works on speed, on the high speed, which is ran through a relay. That's why it's working, and the other 3 speeds aren't. It sounds all right, so we're just gonna go ahead and throw the resistor in this thing. So here on a WJ, we can see right here underneath the passenger side, we've got our blower motor resistor. We'll get this thing unplugged. We've got 2 little Phillips screws here, and we'll get this old one out and the new one thrown in. Okay, we should now have a little better, hey, look at that. We have low, a little less low. We've got all of our speeds back now with our fresh blower motor. That is one more thing knocked off the list. So now we've got our front drive shaft, which was in a pretty sad state of affair. The front U-joint was really sloppy, so here you can see me knocking in a new front U-joint, and then this one is the CV style shaft there at the other end. So Driveshaftparts.com is kind of my go-to, whether I'm just getting a boot kit or the whole joint rebuild kit. You can buy them dirt cheap on there, and again, get a boot kit or the whole joint kit. The joint was still fine on this thing, so it just needed the boot kit. Again, comes with a front cap, the boot, the clamps, the grease, a snap ring. It comes with new bolts. It's really a good kit for as outrageously cheap as they are. So we've got that joint off there. We are putting the new boot kit on this thing now, getting the seal ready, knocking the front cap off, and then sliding our original joint back on, getting our snap ring on, getting the whole thing put together here with our grease, so this joint will hopefully live quite a bit longer life here back on the front of this thing. Like I said, the drive shafts are normally real expensive, but you can save yourself a ton of money by just replacing the joint or boot kit. You do need some snap ring pliers, but still, you could buy the kit plus snap ring pliers and still save yourself some money there. Now, like I said, this was filmed out of order too, but you can see my sweet custom exhaust back there. That was quite a project and didn't go that smoothly, but now that it's done, it's pretty cool. I think I am getting ready to clip that in after this now. All right, so here is our exhaust mod. Now, I was hoping to film the whole thing, but it did kind of
end up going poorly. As you can see, I'm now cutting off my own catalytic converter. And then we'll be pulling the muffler off. This is a 4-liter that has the 2 primary cats up high and has that secondary cat down low. Now this one, the muffler was a little bit tired on, so I ended up with my normal 2004 V8 mid-pipe and then threw on my Amazon $35 fake Flowmaster.
Okay guys, so that was probably the most hodgepodge put together video that I've ever done. That was like over multiple days, you know, putting different parts on as parts came in, but it's kind of a running driving thing now. I'm filming the outro of this video like weeks and weeks after doing the last repair, so I really don't even remember what all I filmed. So I'll do a quick run through on kind of everything this took to get moving and happy on the road again. Now, starting up front, this thing did get, you know, all the tie rod ends, drag link ends. They're pretty much always worn out on all of these things. So again, both tie rod ends, both drag link ends. We've got a brand new JL takeoff steering dampener on this thing. We've got some brand new, you know, headlights because these were so darn faded on this one. But I mean, the hood's got a few little character lines up there from Lord knows what, but lifted wheels and tires like we previously talked about. We've got our Gladiator Rubicon rear shocks that are pretty darn cool. And then up front, we've got our JK Rubicon shocks with our bar pin eliminators right there. Underneath, we did all the things that you need to do to something that's been sitting forever. We changed front axle fluid, transmission fluid, engine oil, obviously transmission filter while we had the pan off, transfer case fluid, rear axle fluid. This thing, again, I don't really know or remembered if this is going to make the cut, but this thing got a fake Amazon $35 Flowmaster style muffler installed in place of the factory, and that factory third catalytic converter removed, and this thing sounds real good. I did my window tint here on the front. This actually got a brand new windshield because it was, there was like 4 or 5 big chips. It was leaking water from a poorly installed aftermarket glass up here in the corner, getting the floorboard wet. So I just went ahead and put a brand new glass. It is now actually sealed like it's supposed to be. Under the hood here, we did brand new factory copper spark plugs. It got a new battery. It got a new valve cover, gasket that is. Again, just all of the things that need done. Brake fluid got changed because this thing ended up having a locked up left front brake caliper. So we've got a shiny new brake caliper back there with new front brake pads, turned brake rotors, and again, changed brake fluid. But I mean, all the little piddly things that this thing needed, they just kind of all start adding up. The radio screen was dead, so we of course threw a RB1 in this so we could have a cool factory screen radio. Either this thing was missing or not equipped with auto headlights, but it did have the sun load sensor there on the dash. So I went ahead and got a used headlight switch so this could have auto headlights like it's supposed to. And then most recently pulled the full interior out, all the seats, all the carpets, went ahead and power washed, shampoo, scrubbed the carpets to get them back to life because they were, it was pretty bad in there underneath the seats and everywhere. So carpets now look new. It smells nice inside. And I've just been driving the thing. It's, again, been 8 months since I've been in a WJ when I got this thing. So it's been kind of fun having a WJ back into the daily driver rotation, if you will. So guys, like I said, no clue how interesting this video is going to be. And I don't even remember what all I've got chopped, pieced, and parted of actual footage of fixing, repairing things. The big thing was that this wasn't an ignition switch actuator pin that was broke. It was a transmission park neutral switch, which I don't often run into on the 42 RLE, and that's what we ran into. It just didn't know the thing was in park, so it would never crank the vehicle. That's why they had a goofy push button start wired up. It was kind of a weird deal. So got a park neutral switch installed in that transmission, and boom, had a now starting vehicle with a key, which is always kind of a good thing. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed kind of seeing a little more of what goes into getting one of these things out of someone's backyard, on the road, and all those little teeny small meticulous things that I do to every darn one of these things to make them happy and hopefully find a new home again. So guys, thanks for coming out into the garage, into the shop, into the driveway, and kind of finishing up another WJ. Like I said, I think this is my 15th WJ, which is kind of crazy to think about, but I really enjoy putting these back together, putting a little lift on them, putting wheels and tires, and just going through them meticulously and fixing all the little piddly things and getting to daily drive them while I'm doing that, which is always kind of fun. So guys, again, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.